when I was in acting school, I started seeing how much nepotism is a problem. Like it's all Nepo babies. And it's like, oh, like this star and this star and this star, their dads are all producers. But with comedy, there's like no faking that. There's no like pedigree of like, well, I went to Juilliard for comedy. Like there's no barrier to that. We would do a lot of acting classes in the, what is the name of that studio? They're like famous like studios where musical auditions happen all the time in New York City. They're like right by Penn Station. Mm-hmm. We were in the studio and I saw all these people lined up to audition for Margaritaville, and all these women lined up, and they're all the same height and they're all so like in perfect shape, and they can all do splits and tap dance and hit a high C. And those are like all the barriers before you even get to who the individual is.
Yeah.
Like this is all requirement before you even get to the audition. It's just like prereqs, you know? But for comedy, there's like nothing up there to hide who you are. Like it's just you up there, and your dad could be Jerry Seinfeld. But like, if you don't have original good stuff to say, you're just not going to make it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Pranzata Podcast. This is your host, Andrea Pranzatelli. This is episode number 116 on the Pranzata Podcast on YouTube. We have another guest today. Today we have Hannah Lieberman. Hannah is a stand-up comedian based in New York City, and I have a lot of questions prepared for her today about stand-up comedy and philosophy and more. So before we get into it, if you enjoy what you hear today, please don't forget to hit subscribe. It is my mission to grow this channel this year, and your support would be incredibly helpful. Okay, so my first question for you, Hannah, I was looking into your bio and I asked for some information on you to prepare questions. I'm just going to start with this one because I thought this was the funniest, most interesting thing I've ever seen on a bio. So apparently you had a job that you did color commentary for a school Scrabble nationals. Can you just explain that to me? And was that like
it was like, I'm going to
comedy? Was it like a comedy commentary? Okay.
No, I have a joke about it. I say not to brag, but I'm a bit of a celebrity in the Scrabble community. And then I mean, no, seriously, not to brag. It's not something to strive for. But I've been playing competitive Scrabble since I was like 11. I'm a school Scrabble alum, and I'm one of very few extroverts who play Scrabble. So they've had me now 3 years in a row doing the live color commentary for the school Scrabble nationals competition in DC. So they like flew me down. I got to like stay, in a swanky hotel. And then I just become this whole new person. So basically it's like these teams of middle schoolers from around the country playing each other for scholarship money. And it's me, I become a whole new, I'm like, we see these two teams from Minnesota and they have, great eye for the board. Do they know strategically to shut down that triple lane? There's only one E remaining. Back to you, Will. I'm like, who is that?
Just to explain to the listeners, because I'm not a sports person, so I didn't even know what color commentary meant. I'm like, she's commenting on the colors like of the
red. Yeah.
Like, so look it up and it's like,
so sports. It's like, when you're, well, I say, when you're watching sports, but I also don't watch sports. So I imagine when you're watching sports, there's like the two guys in the booth who are like, and here we see like Ron, blah, 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 400 pounds. I don't know why they always comment their weight, but you know what I mean? They're doing their live sports analysis. And so we have a camera set up watching the board and also watching the kids, which is great because they're in middle school. So they're just so awkward. Like they don't know what to do with their hands ever. And they're like, whispering to each other and then making plays. Oh my gosh. Is
this something did you have to practice to do this job, or did you kind of just like go there and wing it and it came out naturally?
I mean, yes, I've gotten better at it over the years because it's my third year doing it, but it's basically just like, it's just being a nerd. It's just shooting the shit with an actual expert Scrabble player. So the other guy doing commentary is like known. He's an expert player. I think he's won a few national titles. He's like a great player. I'm a very mediocre player in the world of competitive Scrabble. So it's just him being like, I would do this. And then me being like, is that a word? Maybe.
I didn't realize that Scrabble was something competitive. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, no, you know what it made me realize, because growing up in the Scrabble community, which again, what a sexy sentence to say, is just that there's a world out there for everything.
Yeah.
Like, I bet you there's competitive Yahtzee that I don't even know. And there's like drama in the Yahtzee community. I mean, there's like Scrabble is a whole, hundreds of people, and there's drama and there's politics. Like it's for real. It's
they need
real
to have
thing.
like a reality TV show about the Scrabble.
It would be delicious. It would be so good. But also there's a lot of people who play Scrabble who are on the autism spectrum, which is great because it's a great outlet for them, but it's not necessarily the most like camera ready group of people. My mom always says like all the brain cells going to memorizing the dictionary aren't going to like how to talk to women or like hygiene in some cases.
Does the game move quickly?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna plug in my computer, but the game does move. Sorry, I'm a very prepared professional person. So you get 25 minutes per side, and then there's challenge rules, and there's there's a whole big rule book and a director who is in charge of making calls. We had a lot of dramatic director calls during our color commentary. I mean, like I'm joking about it, but we had 1,000 people watching. It was a good Twitch stream.
I'm not gonna lie, I would be interested in watching that. If you ever you have my Instagram, but if you ever know where those are performing, I can send you the link to watch the finals for the middle school division was really competitive. I'll send you the link because it's actually thrilling. Like I make all these jokes and I kind of like poke fun at the Scrabble community, but not gonna lie, they were some good games. I was like, is this what sports is like? Because maybe I should watch sports. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like sports is too much for me. I don't understand what's going on, but I know Scrabble. So I feel like that would be like something I could follow along, Well,
and like we have all the information as the commentators that the players don't have. And we're like, we know that that's a phony, or like, oh my God, we know they have a 7-letter word in that rack. Like, are they going to find it? Oh my gosh, they found the prefix. Like, are they going to get, you should have seen like some of these games. I had my Fitbit on, my heart rate was going, oof.
This is some nerdy shit. Like, I feel like I could meet my husband in the audience or something.
Oh my gosh. There was, the tournament takes place in the Planet Word Museum, which is just a museum all about like etymology and linguistics. And I'm truly nerdgasm. Like
that's hot.
So hard. It was hot. And they were like, yeah, people get married here sometimes. And I was like, okay, well, have to find the groom. But like, yes, it will be happy.
Okay, my next question for you. So you mentioned that you're debuting your first. Okay, explain this to me because I was asking in the thing. It's your first debut of a headline. So you've done headlines before, but it's your first time really advertising for it. Is that correct?
So I've had a few sets where I've been like the quote unquote headliner, but it's not like it was a show of like where people are going specifically to see me. Mm-hmm. Like I've had a few shows where I'm the one doing the longest set and I'm the one going last. That's technically the headliner. But this is the first one where like the poster is like QED presents Hannah Lieberman, which is exciting and very daunting because I'm doing a 30-minute set. And that is like far longer. In New York City, let me backtrack. When I was in DC doing the color commentary, I did some shows there and it was so lovely that the people let me on. But like, people were speaking so slowly, like they had all the time in the world and telling long stories. And I started comedy in New York City. And in New York, like you have to fight for every minute you are getting on stage. There are so many of us that it's like, okay, you got 5 minutes to prove your salt, So I feel like every time I move up a tier in comedy where it's like I'm at this next level, I'm in these new clubs where like maybe this is a higher caliber, show that I'm doing, I'm back down to like my 5 to 10 minute sets. Like you keep having to like start again and build back up. So it's a totally different muscle doing 30 minutes versus 5-minute sets. I'm like, every single sentence better have a punchline. Like, I got to punch this whole thing. Let's go. 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, I can tell long meandering stories. I mean, I probably shouldn't the whole time, but like, I have things where I'm like, oh, if I were to do that with my shorter set, that would take up the entire thing. Now I'm like, oh, let's get into it. Like, let's relive some trauma. It's great.
I actually had this as a question later, but I'm going to ask it now because it applies to what we're talking about. right now because I'm a vocalist and I also
Mhm.
do podcasting as well. And I've had to kind of relearn how to use my voice in a healthier way. Now, I was curious, does that, because it's like my obsession right now, like all I can think about is like deep breathing and like trying to prepare a breath before I talk and everything like that. So I have longer vocal stamina. As a headliner, is that something that's come up for you? Like having to have vocal
So
stamina on stage with 30-minute sets?
I think that is, of all the aspects of comedy, probably the thing I'm most prepared for. I say this as I'm very raspy right now, but the raspiness is because of babysitting. It's because I was a little 2-year-old, and I'm like, okay, if we're gonna walk down the street in a stroller, I'm going to comment on every fire truck. I just was talking the whole day. But I used to be a tour guide as just like a survivor job. And I was a Statue of Liberty tour guide, and we would do 9 tours in a row. So that's 9 hours of talking with no breaks. And I'm the kind of person who, like, once I would learn a new fun fact about the Brooklyn Bridge, I'm not going to not say it. So over time, my tour didn't get longer. I just got faster and faster and faster and faster at talking. So sorry for all the like German and Dutch and like Indonesian tourists who had to just hear a little white lady jabbering and couldn't translate quickly enough. But that definitely helped with longevity. And also, when I first moved to New York, I moved here for acting school. So we had voice class, we had Alexander technique, we had speech class. It was all like, yeah. So I feel like that's also very helpful. There are so many comics, like it's like you're saying, once you know it, you can't unhear it, where you'd be like, oh, the vocal fry. Oh no, your glottal stop. Stop it.
I feel like this is important to talk about because of all the different fields that use the voice, like what you said, acting school and everything. That's so much a part of the process is learning how to have healthy vocal technique. But when it comes to comedians, it's just something that they never seem to talk about. And I've been listening to so many different podcasts out there, like of stand-up comedians, like really successful ones that I like. I like the Joe Rogan podcast. I was listening to, it was like post-pandemic when things started opening up. And he did an episode once where he was like, I can't talk. He's like, sorry if I sound really bad. He's like, after the pandemic, he went back to doing stand-up and he like wasn't prepared. And I was like talking to the screen. I was like, oh my God, you got to do your vocal warm-ups. Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like it's important. Yeah.
There's no class for any of it. I mean, like I went to acting school. Like I had classes for everything. For comedy, there is no like, here's the next step. You know, I went to what I think is a pretty good college. And I had a lot of friends who went on to law school and med school, and they had such clear paths where they were like, okay, so first I get my residency and then my internship, and then I'm a doctor. Like, step 1, step 2, step 3. And with comedy, I'm like, am I doing it right? Like I'm babysitting. That feels right. I'm paying my rent. So yeah, there's just no one, first off, there's no one like clear path for how to do comedy anyways. But also like, there's just no, the only handbook we have is like conventional wisdom from older comics, and comedy is always changing. So who knows if that works anymore anyways. So yeah, there's no like, oh, don't you remember in comedy school when we learned vocal warm-ups? Like, no, comedy school was an open mic in Brooklyn. Like,
it's kind of, I mean, in a way, it's kind of exciting that that's a reality, because as a musician, you know, I can be creative with music, but there is music school and there is like, well, our professors taught us this chord progression and we did learn this, you know what I mean? So that's kind of like, there's something really exciting about that you kind of get to create the curriculum in your own way. No one's really telling you what to do, you know?
Oh, I absolutely agree. And kind of along those lines, something that really excited me about comedy when I started is when I was in acting school. And I think I went to acting school knowing I ultimately wanted to do comedy. I was just too scared to move to New York without like a program or something, you know? But when I was in acting school, I started seeing how much nepotism is a problem. Like it's all nepo babies. And it's like, oh, like this star and this star and this star, their dads are all producers. But with comedy, there's like no faking that. There's no like pedigree of like, well, I went to Juilliard for comedy. Like there's no barrier to that. We would do a lot of acting classes in the, what is the name of that studio? They're like famous like studios where musical auditions happen all the time in New York City. They're like right by Penn Station. Mm-hmm. we were in the studio and I saw all these people lined up to audition for Margaritaville, which I'm like, RIP. These people probably played John Valjean in high school and they're like, I hope I get the national. Anyways. And I say that, but I could never do it. Right. And all these women lined up and they're all the same height and they're all so like perfect, in perfect shape. And they can all do splits and tap dance and hit a high C. And those are like all the barriers before you even get to who the individual is.
Yeah.
Like this is all requirement before you even get to the audition. It's just like prereqs, you know? But for comedy, there's like nothing up there to hide who you are. Like it's just you up there, and your dad could be Jerry Seinfeld. But like, if you don't have original good stuff to say, you're just not going to make it, with a few exceptions. But like, oh, I'm like way shadier in this interview than I thought I was going to be. But like, it's vulnerable. Like it's your material. It better be good and make people laugh. There's no hiding if it doesn't make people laugh.
And also to top off what you said too about when you saw them trying out for the musical, how they all had a particular, like almost like a Stepford Wives, like identical look to them. That's another thing in comedy. It's like you can be attractive or you can be somebody completely out of shape. Like you don't have to look anything either. You just have to be funny, you know?
I feel like what's really cool about comedy, and part of what drew me to it, is that you are also the person writing the material. So it not only will be authentic to you, but kind of has to be. Like you have to have a unique voice and something to say. And that there's certainly room for that in acting and theater, maybe a little bit less in musical theater. But there's certainly like, I'm bringing a part of myself to this role, but it is a role that somebody else wrote. And I think what appeals to me first about like solo theater, but then I realized ultimately I actually just want to do comedy, is like, I'm a control freak. I want to write it and I want to direct it. I don't want to like write my joke and then someone else says it and I'm like, no, say it like this. You know, you can't actually, that's not a good director and that's not a good writer unless you're doing it for yourself for stand-up comedy. So I kind of like that you have that control, and it also adds the pressure of like, and if this doesn't work, it's on me. It's either something I did in the writing or in the delivery or, you know, how I directed it. Like I am every part of this process. So I'm the one who has to fix it. It's awesome. Kind of cool and liberating to be like, not only is it encouraged to be yourself on stage, but like, I don't think people are successful if they're not.
Yeah. No, I think that's why people are so drawn to comedy. That's why I'm drawn to comedians, because it's a breath of fresh air. People have busy lives. They have jobs they have to go to where they have to like play this role, put on this part. They're not allowed to be unprofessional in these professional settings. So it's a place to go where they can kind of unwind and just be authentic and be themselves. And having an authentic like comedian really representing who they are, it kind of gives the audience permission to kind of just like let loose, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's not to say that we're not like hamming it up. I mean, like, I feel like I play a caricatured version of myself a lot of times, but it's based on reality, you know? I do a lot of self-deprecating humor and kind of like making observations about myself and how I think other people perceive me. But I think something that's nice about that is when you like show the audience like, hey, I'm in on the joke, then it frees you up to do other, like, I don't know. I just think being self-aware and like really knowing what your aesthetic is and like who you are on stage. No, I'm so self-conscious about my voice. I'm like,
sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you. No, that the whole, the voice thing is new for me because my day job is teaching. That's what I do to support my bills.
That's going to ruin your voice.
Podcaster and singer. So I had like in the past had vocal stamina issues. And like lately I've been killing it with like daily vocal exercises, like taking deep breaths, like before I start a new sentence. And my stamina has built up. So I didn't mean to make you so.
No, that's great. I mean, listen, I need to get back. I like if acting school Hannah could see me, I'd be like, tisk, tisk. I used to be because in acting school, we would have like every other day, we would have like 2 hours of voice classes, you know, and then in college I sang and I took actual like singing voice lessons, and you learn so much just about anatomy. But I remember that with Alexander technique in acting school, which Alexander technique was born out of this guy who was like, I have to talk all day for my job and my body just can't do it. How do I do this? And it came down to not just vocal exercises, but like his posture and like loosening up his throat. I know. And I'm so, oh my gosh, my posture is terrible on stage. I get on stage and something about me just, I think it's because I want to seem cooler than I am, but I just like turn into a little gremlin. Like I just like, you got, what's up? I'm cool. I don't care. So I don't care. So I become a bridge troll. I don't know.
Yeah, like you don't want to be like this, like hello.
I'm like I'm not rigid. I'm loose. I'm fine. This is fine. And then I'm just like, hey guys. Like, I don't know what. Every time. Oh my gosh, the most painful part of comedy is trying to watch a tape of you doing comedy afterwards, and then it's like, why? I don't like this.
When I do live music performances, I just did one the other night. And my friend was like, let me send you pictures and videos. I'm like, please don't. Like,
please don't.
Like, I was bloated that day. Like, I don't want to see what I looked like.
Something about people taking pictures of comedy is they're like, let's wait until Hannah has a few more chins. Like, what if she, you know what? I think she's getting a little too big for her bridges. What if we like just show her with no eyebrows? What if she's just a little sentient potato?
Not only that, but when you get your photos taken, because like I get this with singing, when you get your photos taken live in action shot, they're never attractive. Like I'll be like,
yeah. Oh my gosh. It makes me very nervous for my wedding someday because I see these TikToks of women who are like, I practice soft smiles, but look at me now. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a crier. And I'm like, I don't think I'm an ugly crier, but I don't know that there's a particularly attractive kind of crier. Like I'm going to be like
you're going to be like,
yeah, thank you for loving me. It's not going to go well at all. So
at least it'll be an authentic moment.
It will be off. You know what? That's what we're going for here.
Okay. My next question for you. Oh, okay. So as a comedian, I feel like there's a lot of being comfortable facing the audience, and especially as a headliner now, and being comfortable preparing. I was not a headliner, so this isn't coming from my personal experience, but just my observation of professional comedians. They have to be confident enough to handle the audience and hecklers and anything that comes their way. Have you always been, or I don't know if you are you naturally a confrontational person? Like, are you comfortable communicating and confronting people?
Such a great question. And I'm going to give an answer that I think people, if they saw me and talked to me for 2 minutes, would be like, oh, that tracks. I'm sensitive and I will cry. Don't be mean to me. And I think audiences just inherently get that. Part of it is a lot of my shows lately, I bark, which is when you sell tickets beforehand. And so like, I feel like people get to know me before I'm even on stage, and I'm like, I'm sensitive. I'll go on stage and I'll be like, hi, please laugh. I stake my entire self-worth in this. Like I think people can tell. I do love crowd working and talking to people and getting to know them. But I feel like I have some friends who do roast battles, and I'm like, that is my nightmare.
I did like a roast battle once, and the last one, like listeners, I haven't been doing comedy anymore because my attention was diverted into so many things. Right. And I realized I had to pick and choose one, or one was going to suffer. So right now I'm putting my all into music and podcasting alongside of music, which was a very sad thing to do because I felt like I definitely had a seed of potential that could have grown. But I realized I would have to I would be doing two things shitty and not
too many eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a whole nother story. But when I was a comedian, I did roast battles, and the last roast battle I did I feel like was the reason I stopped doing. I mean, I stopped doing comedy because of what I just said. But there was a couple jokes that he had. I was like, wow, that hurt, but it was so true. Like one of the jokes the guy had against me was that he goes, I asked around about Andrea. She's very talented. She does comedy and music. And he said, I asked around the comedy community and said, how is she at comedy? And they responded, she's good at music. And like, ouch. And they said, what else did he say? He said, he said a couple different things, but I was like, that hurt, but it's true. Like I'm more naturally musically inclined. Yeah.
I know myself well enough to know that I do not have the mental fortitude to withstand that. Like I feel like I would say something so cutting about someone. I'd get so specific, I'd be like, they weren't popular in third grade. Like I would be like mean. And then they'd be like, Hannah has teeth. And everyone is looking at them. Like I would, and then I'd spend the rest of my life thinking about it. So that's.
Have you ever had a confrontational issue in a show with like a mean heckler or anything like that? Has that ever come up yet?
I honestly haven't. And I've seen people heckle other comics and then I'll go on stage and be like, shut up. But I don't know. I had this one guy, it's just, I have drunk people who will like try and talk through a set and I have a lot of material also about having big teacher vibes. And I'll be like, hi, this wasn't call and response. Thank you so much. Like, I'll just kind of be like, actually, it's my turn to talk now. And,
oh, sorry. I was going to say when I was doing comedy, I never had like mean hecklers, but I did have like drunk guys being like, just shut up and show your tits. Like I had like some
wow, it's so creative. I've never heard that one before. Drunk guys are so clever. I wouldn't say I have that so much on stage, but I do have to deal with that when I'm barking people into shows. It's like being a woman. I had a guy the other day, presumably a homeless guy, walked up to me and he was like, don't worry, I don't want to fuck you. I want to make love to you. And I was like, how can he tell that that's what I do? He just read me like a book. He was like, yeah, we're going to put on the Pride and Prejudice soundtrack. Like he knew me so well. And guys like trying to put their arms around you where I'm like, what? Where do you think this is going to go? But I'm like, oh my God, yeah, screw comedy. Let's go off together. Like, have you ever been to Paris? What?
Is there a lot of homelessness right now in New York City? I'm just curious because I'm in Philadelphia and there's a lot of it here right now. I'm curious what the homeless scene. I'm curious what the homeless scene is like.
Let me tell you about the scene. I feel like so much of it, as with any city, depends on where you are. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen terribly much. I know there's a big situation right now with a lot of immigrants coming in. Yeah, the governor of Texas, sending buses of people here. But I think I feel bad because maybe it shows that I'm kind of bubbled from the world, but I haven't seen anything like that. I mean, there's nothing more than it has been. I've been in New York for 5.5 years now, and there's always been people on the train and, but that's not general. I never feel unsafe from that generally. Generally, it's more like drunk frat bros who are just being assholes. There's so many people who walk by and are like, oh, I'm actually the funny guy in my friend group. And you're like, wow, okay, great. Thank you. People who just are like, oh, I've never done comedy, but I'm pretty sure if I did it, I'd be really good at it. That kind of people.
Yeah.
That to me is more frustrating. I've never felt unsafe.
Yeah, no, Philly's a different beast. And when I moved to Philly, because I hadn't lived in New York, but I was from North Jersey. So I was, I was at New York enough. And same exact thing. When I moved to Philly and people were like, it's intense there. There's a lot of violence, a lot of homelessness. I'm like, I know homelessness. I'm like, I've been to New York City. They're fine. They're harmless. It's a totally different beast in Philadelphia because of the fentanyl. There's a fentanyl issues and crisis over here. So, my car was stolen within 3 weeks of living here. That's
oh my God.
Yeah. So it's different. And so I'm like, that's why I ask, because I'm curious. I'm like, has it gotten that way in New York City too? Or probably not?
I'm sure in some parts of New York City it has. I think I'm pretty shielded from that. I also think I've probably just gotten lucky. I was walking home from the train the other day and my boyfriend came to meet me to walk me the rest of the way home. So, comedy, it was 1 a.m., so past my bedtime. And I was very stupidly just playing on my phone. And my boyfriend was like, I'm glad I came because I think that guy behind you was going to mug you. Now, I have no idea if that's real, but I'm like, wow, I think I've just been skating by luckily this whole time. I think I'm the kind of person who's on her phone and the piano drops behind her in the cartoon.
Oh yeah. No, in Philly, my heart just sank because in Philly, I carry an alarm with me and mace with me everywhere I go. You can never you can't walk at 1 a.m. in Philly.
I think there's something so I'm from North Carolina. So I think there's something that makes me feel very badass to be like, I'm fine. I'm not scared at all. It's fine. And that probably makes me a little naive. Probably shouldn't be like saying this on a public podcast, but I probably need to be a little more aware of my surroundings. But yeah, I'm very like, I don't know. I feel fine. Really.
Okay. My next question for you is, okay, this is a big one. So you're obviously, like you said, climbing the ranks because you're doing headlining. It's a lot of work. As someone who's a creative myself, it's a lot of work to manage the bills plus pursuing your dream. And I also see you do TikTok reels as well. So my question for you is, what do you do to help you balance the whole act? The money plus pursuing your career and getting better and better, plus the social media stuff. Any tips or things that help you?
First off, the social media stuff I am awful with. I every day tell myself, and you're going to film that reel, and then I don't do it because I don't like it. I don't want to like put myself on camera, and then like I'm my own worst critic, but I'm just mean to myself, and I'm like, oh my God, you look like. I picture like my high school bullies watching it. And I'm like, what would they say? I don't know. I hate doing the social media stuff. But in terms of the money stuff, I got really lucky. So first off, when I moved to New York for acting school, I wasn't in debt from undergrad, which is just comes from a place of privilege. I had scholarships, I worked, but my parents ultimately really paid the bulk of it, which is just very lucky. And then for acting school, which was like grad school for me, I borrowed the money from them rather than from student loans. So they didn't charge me interest, which was very nice of them. And then I worked 4 jobs while I was in acting school, which was, I just look back on pre-pandemic me and I'm like, how, what? I think it's like an object at motion versus an object at rest. Like, I think I just was like, I just have to do it and keep going. I worked as a tour guide, and I worked as at a little kid's arts and crafts birthday party place. And I was a dog sitter, and I was a babysitter. Like, I did all the things, saved up some money. And then what really like catapulted it to like being able to pursue comedy is I was on a game show a few years ago. I was on $100,000 pyramid on ABC, and like they tax your winnings to shit. I didn't win the whole 100,000, but I won enough to pay my parents off for grad school all at once.
God, wow.
Which was, and I got LASIK. It was a big year.
God. Like something is trying, like I'm not trying to impose beliefs on anybody, but I've been believing some things lately, and I feel like something was helping you, you know?
I mean, look, the stars freaking aligned for that one.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, I think I would have still pursued comedy otherwise. I'm at the point right now where between getting paid like $20 for a random show and the barking where you get to normally keep half of whatever you sell, I'm not eating into my savings. Like, I'm not really contributing to my savings, but I'm not eating into it. But it helps that I like had this cushion going into comedy, where like I got to quit doing the Statue of Liberty, where I would go and really be losing my voice at night, like, and just be physically exhausted. I mean, I'm at the point now, last month, I promise I know how to finish a sentence. I'm just not good at it tonight. A few months ago, I was doing like maybe 8 to 10 shows a month. And last month, I hit 40 shows for the month for the first time. And it was because of the barking. It's a pretty taxing job just mentally, because you're out there by yourself for like an hour and a half before a show, trying to sell tickets. It's like 200 rejections for every person who like makes even eye contact with you. But I'm pretty good at it. And I think it's because I have a lot of energy. And also people are like, she wouldn't scam me. She's a Girl Scout. Like, I look like a Muppet. So they're not, so I've been barking a lot, and I've been putting in the reps for shows and really treating comedy like a job. And I think back when I was working so much, it was, one, I needed to do it because I had to pay my rent. But 2, it made it, it was a very convenient and very believable excuse for not doing more comedy stuff, where it would be like, I'm not going to go to that open mic because I got offered a babysitting gig and I have to pay my rent. And it was a way for me to like kind of shirk away from fully pursuing comedy. And then maybe like, I don't know, 6 months ago to like 6 to 8 months ago, I just started like, I don't need to do other things. I have the savings and I can earn enough from like tomorrow I'm babysitting 9 to 6. And then again, tomorrow's crazy. I'm babysitting 8:45 to 5:45 and then a different kid 6 to 8 and then barking 8 to 9:30 and then I'll be on the show at like 10. So it's going to be a long, long day full of just so many diaper changes. But but like I'll say no to nighttime babysitting because I'll be like, I can probably get a show that night. Like I'm finally putting comedy first. And I feel like these past few months when I've been barking so much and doing so many shows, I've gotten better at comedy in the last 2 months than I had like the whole year before that. Just because it's a muscle you have to exercise. Like I'm putting in the reps, you know? It's all fine and good if you like have a great set, but then if you don't perform again for a whole other week, how do you really apply what you learned? So yeah, it's been really, I mean, it's exhausting. I'm not a night person. I'm like, I want to be in bed.
I was actually, it's funny you said that. I was literally just going to ask you that because you were saying you have like teacher vibes. And I'm like, I wonder if she's a night person. That was going to be my question. I could totally relate. I'm not sure if I have teacher vibes. Maybe I do have teacher vibes. I don't know. I mean, I have like a giant bookshelf.
I mean, you're an actual teacher, so that tracks.
I am such a morning person. My body gets up at 5 a.m.
Oh, God.
And that is the biggest challenge as being a musician because same thing with comedy. Sometimes I was going to say, I don't know if it goes as late as comedy, but actually now that I think about it, I think sometimes music goes even later than comedy. Cause like, don't the comedy shows, they usually end like midnight the latest or do they?
Well, yeah. Some of them start at midnight. I'm not normally on those. I think the bookers know better. They're like, she will be in pajamas. Yeah. A part of what's hard too is like, it's not just your spot, but you really should like hang around to schmooze and network. And whenever my spot is done, I'm like, but home has bed, home has Netflix. Yeah. I've decided to start calling my apartment another spot so that it shows like me like, sorry, I have to get to another spot. I have another spot tonight. And then I can just go home.
Yeah, no, I couldn't relate any more to that. I'm like such a morning person.
Well, and like when I stopped doing the job, so I live in this apartment with my boyfriend, which is also a nice little hack because you get to split rent. There's like the things you have to balance, like money and social life and comedy. And now it's also like, oh, I have this person that I cannot neglect. Like, I can't just be like, sorry for being a bad friend. I know I haven't reached out to you in months. Like, no, I need to actually spend time with him. So, which I love. I love spending time with him, but makes it hard for like, if there is a night where I don't have a show and I'm offered babysitting, I'm like, wait, I have my other job, which is just like being a decent girlfriend and hopefully like, yeah.
Do you have like a designated date night or do you just like wing it each week, whatever day is free?
We wing it each week, but what's helpful is normally I don't have things during the day on the weekends. So we have a pretty solid bagel routine going on, which is great. And he'll be at like the 30-minute set that I'm doing. I'll drag him to shows every so often. I think he could probably perform my set at this point. So God bless him, because I'm like, it's not funny to me anymore. It's certainly not funny to him anymore. But
do you ever perform in Philadelphia?
I have once, but I would love to come back out. I mean, hook a girl up.
I can ask around for you if I know anybody who's like looking for somebody. Cause like, I was going to say, I want to see your set. It sounds really fun.
Oh, watch me. Wouldn't it be so funny if I was just really bad? I don't know. I just think about this and there's like, did you ever like, back when I was dating, did you ever like go on dates and the guy would be like, let me show you my art, and it would just be terrible and you'd have to be like, I'm so glad you have hobbies. Like, oh my God. I think about that all the time when I like invite friends to my shows where I'm like, I promise I'm not the best, but I'm not going to bomb. I swear. Like,
I saw your clips and I thought it was really funny. I saw clips on your Instagram.
I'm like, I feel so bad. I just want to like reassure people, like, it's not going to be painful. It's going to be okay. Even if it's
When I was doing comedy, I never invited anybody. People would be like, let me see your show. I'm be like, please don't. Like, don't come to see my show.
Well, in New York, like so much of when I started was doing bringers, which is like, for the audience who has an actual life, a bringer is when you have to, in order to be on the show, a certain number of people have to come.
Yeah.
So basically you're doing the producer's job and you're not making any money. You're just making your friends. It's pay to play, but your friends are paying, which makes you a shitty friend, but you got to do it. And honestly, bringers were big for me. They got my foot in the door in a lot of places where I then went on to like get past. But there was a long period of time where it was like, oh, can't ask her. She just came to a thing for me 2 weeks ago. Like, it feels like you're like spending your friends, and I don't know, made me feel like a shitty friend. I still did it. It's not to say I'm a good person, but
they might ask for like a, hey, I helped you, hook me up here, like down the road.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, my friends have real life jobs. So there's no like, and now come watch me be in law school. Like I just,
and then you'll be like,
asking for these big favors.
And then when they do, you'll be like, sorry, I have a gig.
Yeah. I'll be like, actually, I'm really like focusing on comedy right now. So.
Okay. I have a few more questions for you. I can't believe we already went for like 45 minutes. That's crazy.
I'm a chatter. I'm a chit chatter.
No, I mean, it's good. I feel like it felt natural. Like it you know what I mean? It just like kind of flowed. Damn it. I'm trying to get ums out of I think that might've been my first That's another thing
I didn't notice any.
I'm trying, along with increasing my vocal stamina, I have my water prepared. I'm trying to get rid of ums and likes. So I just like bummed myself
That's
out.
excellent. I've noticed my vocal tics so much in trying to make my captions for Instagram reels, because when I post my sets, every sentence I would end with right, like as if to say, am I right? I don't know. I guess I just need validation from the audience, because I'm always like, right, guys, right? Do you like me? Like,
here's another one that's been driving me crazy that I noticed on my podcasting. Like sometimes when I would go in to take a breath, you would hear this like noise. Do you know what I'm talking about? That like,
yeah.
Oh no, it's this. Like it would go like, and I think it's
plosives.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I think it's because I would be trying to take a breath to start my next sentence, and like my mouth would be closed. Like I'd be thinking something and be like, oh yeah,
you hear that?
Like, yeah. And that drove me.
I used to when I was in college, I worked for a classical public radio station, and you learn how to do like your NPR voice where you don't use any plosives, which are like P's.
Is that what that's called? Plosives?
A plosive is a certain kind of consonant. This is the speech class from acting school coming back. So there are plosives, which are like, they go with they're like vocalized consonants that pair with them. So like P and B are pairs, and T and D are pairs. So T is like it doesn't have a vowel to it, versus D is like D. So we used to do warm-ups that were like like it was.
That's crazy. Wow.
Acting school's weird. But yeah, it's so if you think like P and B are the same part of your mouth, but one you're vocalizing and one you're not.
Yeah, there's a whole science to it, right? Like different parts of your tongue and like
everything. Oh yeah, there are like some that form in the back, and some you can go from the back to the front, like
wow,
weird shit.
Okay, my next question for you. Ooh, okay. This is I threw in 2 philosophical questions.
Okay, I heard you say that at the beginning, and I was like, shit, I didn't study my. Like,
not like that. More just opinions. If you were given the option to live forever, would you take it?
Oh my gosh. No. Oh no, because I'd be sad. First off, I find it comforting that when they're like, the sun's going to explode in 80 billion years or whatever, then I'm like, I won't be there. But also, I have friends and my mom and my dogs. Like, they're going to be gone, and that would make me so sad.
But if you live forever, the new ones will come.
Yes, but that sounds lonely. And also time, like now we're getting really philosophical, but when you're little, waiting for 6 minutes for something feels like forever, and it feels like nothing when you're older. And it's just because the comparison of how long that has been in your life is so much greater when you're little. Like I think about this with little kids, like crying so fully, because we talk a lot in acting school about how little kids are great to watch for acting because they just emote so fully and so readily. But it's like when they're crying because like they skidded their knee and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to them, it is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. They haven't had that long for bad things to happen, you know? And so like when time seems to move more quickly the older you get, right? So if you were to live forever, being like, well, I've got another 80 years with this person, eventually it's just going to feel like nothing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I wouldn't want to live forever either because
unless a few other people can live forever.
Yeah, because like there's something about the deadline of death that, because what would be even the incentive of pursuing comedy if you didn't have that, like, if you didn't have that stress of, okay, I'm going to be dead one day. I've got to make something of myself. Isn't that the stress that kind of creates everything?
There needs to be an end in order for it to have a purpose. Did you ever watch The Good Place?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, first of all, you should. It's such a good show. But in the end, they're talking about like the problem with heaven is that I used to think about this when I was little. I'd be like, but what if I get bored? Like, what if I've played every combination of letters there is to play in Boggle? What am I going to do for all that time? But it's because like we as humans have finite brains. So processing the infinite is just, I think it's beyond our capabilities.
Yeah. My grandmother, she's 96 and she's still around and kicking it. And I always joke with her. I'm like, you're going to live till 102. And her response is, oh, shoot me. Like she's actually like,
listen.
Yeah, she's like, I've seen it all. I've done it all. She's like, I'm good. She's like, I'm good. I don't need to be here that long. And she's like, what do I have left to do? She's like, she's like, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And like,
I don't know. I'm like, you can always eat one more cookie. I'm here for the food. Like, but I do think it's funny you should ask me this today because I listened to such a comforting New York Times Daily. It's like a podcast that the New York Times does, which is normally they're not comforting at all. Normally it's like, by the way, the world's about to run out of salt. Like normally it's like a problem I didn't even know to worry about. But today it was this person talking about this researcher at a hospice place in Buffalo, New York, who deals with end of life visions and how they're different from hallucinations. And it was all these stories of like people who are like seeing their mom or like, oh my gosh, I'm at the train station with my brothers and they're lucid. They're able to like recognize that they're in the hospital, but they're having these incredibly peaceful end of life visions. And it was like, you should listen to it because it's not like pushing anything religious. It's just the most comforting, like not me walking to Trader Joe's, listening to my podcast, crying today. I was like, your grandma's at peace. Like what? It was so good. You should listen to it.
What's it called again?
It's called The Daily. It's on like Spotify and stuff. It's a New York Times podcast, but they're, and when I go on The Daily, I'll recommend your podcast. No, but they're, normally it's like news pieces. Like they're like, today we're getting like in the trenches in Ukraine, you know, but sometimes they'll just do a New York Times article that went really well. They'll just like have the author read it and expand on it. And it was just beautiful. And it was about like people really finding peace in their final moments and like being like, I'm ready and I've lived a happy life. And it was really nice.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to check that out. That does sound really nice.
It was like, and the music was super comforting and it wasn't trying to be like, death's not sad or like, you shouldn't grieve. But it was just kind of like, here's how people find peace. It was really lovely.
And there almost is like, we think of death as solely this sad thing that happens, but there is in a weird way, a joy to know that this person lived a full life. They did what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
They lived an older age and they're at peace now. There is something also kind of happy about that.
Yeah. When my grandpa died a few years ago, it was honestly the first family member of mine that I really knew who died. And he that day had, read the news, and then my grandma made him a cup of tea, and then they lied in bed together, and then he didn't wake up, which is sad because people, you want to get to say goodbye, but like that is the most peaceful way. I mean, that's all you can wish for in death is that you're 90, you've lived a beautiful life, you're with your loved ones, and then you kind of drift off. I don't know. I say this as someone who's like, so I have OCD, and growing up, I'm like, how do we not know this? But I was one of those kids who was like obsessed with hell and terrified growing up. I think part of it is my dad's Jewish and my mom's an atheist, and I grew up in the South. So like I was very aware of hell, just from little kids being like, oh, you're going to hell. Like I was very, very aware of it and terrified. And I was terrified, like, what if I go to heaven, but my mom doesn't? Like I was, so anything that can help me find peace and just live your best life and try and enable others to live their best lives and like try and leave the world a better place than you found it, which easier said than done. Yeah.
How did sorry to interrupt you. You said you had OCD. How did that, because I know that manifests differently for different people. Did you have like rituals you had to do, or was it thought?
Yeah. So how was it? Wasn't super behavioral, which is, I think when people think of OCD, they think of like, oh, she's a super clean bedroom. Like you can see my bedroom. It's not. It wasn't super behavioral. I mean, I had a few things where like, if I turned one way, I really needed to turn back around the other way, or I felt all twisted up, which made musical theater really hard for the choreography. But mainly it was just like a really hyperactive guilt complex. Like I just would do things and I'd be like, and now I'm a bad person. Or I'd hear a philosophical question, like, and then I just couldn't turn it off. Like if it's an unanswerable philosophical question.
I hope I didn't do it to you today.
No. This is, baby, we're on Zoloft. We are maxed out. I'm on all kitties. You're not the better. This is kid. No, listen, like me from, I don't know, 10 years ago would have dwelled on this for a long time. Me from this, when we hang up, I'm eating pasta and I'm watching Naruto. Like
that sounds really relaxing. I'm actually really hungry. So after I know
I'm keep chit chatting, but
no, you're good. Speaking of the long work days, that was it for me today.
Yeah.
I had a podcast guest booked on Sunday, but he couldn't come. Long story short, this is how it is in Philadelphia. He had a certain style of car that I warned him. I was like, if you have this style of car, you probably shouldn't come because they get stolen all the time here. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, you're right. Now that I think about it, he's like, I stopped coming to Philly because I have a Hyundai and Hyundais get broken into all the time. I was like, yeah, let's reschedule when you have a time where you could like borrow a friend's car.
Take the bus. Yeah.
Yeah. So then like, I was like, crap. Well, now I have to do a last minute podcast. So I had to do it today because it has to come out. This is, if everything goes well, this is coming out tomorrow. This is how it's
holy shit.
But so I'm like, I had like one of those long days. So anyways, that was a long-winded story just to get to the point.
You had a lot going on today.
The pasta sounds really good. Now
you get why I call my apartment the spot, because people are like, should we go out for a drink after this show? And I'm like, no, pajamas.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, no, I'm like 10 o'clock isn't my sleep time. Bedtime isn't sleep time, but 10 o'clock is when the New York Times crossword comes out and I want to be horizontal and I want to be braless. Anyways.
I have one last question for you.
Yes.
It's another philosophical one. So I hope I don't torture you.
I love this idea of like, I have one last question. What is comedy like? And also, where do we go when we die? Gotcha.
The last question is, I recycled this amongst different guests. If you could give your younger self advice that you think would set you up for success today, what do you think you would have told your younger self? And I guess it could be any year, like any time of your life. Yeah. I
mean, I think this is where the OCD gets to me, because I'm like, no, but if I tell myself stuff, then butterfly effect, and maybe I won't be here. Like, I don't know. It all led up to this, I think the more interesting thing for me is thinking about if my future self had to come back and give me advice, what would I hope it would be? And I hope it would just be like, it's all going to be okay. Chill, enjoy the moment you're in. Because that's probably what I would tell to my younger self. And I think when we're giving advice to our younger self, it's a good way to think about actually what should we be doing right now? You know what I mean? Like, I would tell myself to relax and not be so hard on myself and enjoy the success that I've had so far and like keep working hard. That's what I need to do right now.
That's a good way to put it, because it's like your younger self was technically like 2 seconds ago. That was your younger self. You know?
I all the time, whenever I feel like, God, what am I doing in comedy? Because I'm relatively new to comedy. I'm like 2.5 years in. And, when you move up a level, you're with these people who all of a sudden have been in it for years and are so much more comfortable on stage and just really know their shit. But I just think about myself from a year ago and I'm like, oh my God, she would have been so happy. Or I think about myself from college and I'm like, wow, Hannah, you've had sex. Or I think about myself from high school and I'm like, holy shit, you live in New York and you have friends. This is great. What a turnaround. Like, I don't know. If I measure success by looking back instead of looking forward, I feel like I'm doing fine. So, and do as I say, not as I do. I'm very hard on myself and I'm full of doubt constantly. Like we said, I don't do roast battles, but
I think the beginning of this episode, you were like, is my hair okay?
Yeah. Well, we're not filming this again. There's no take 2 and I want my, I showered today, but didn't wash my hair. And now I had one piece that was just sticking out the whole time. Anyways, I'm not going to judge myself for that. And if I had one advice, it would be to go to past Hannah and be like, go ahead and wash your hair. Go ahead and do that before.
That's your younger self advice.
My younger self. Oh my God. Throwback way back when, back in the day, 2 minutes ago, I would have done a vocal warm up to really impress you.
No, yeah. I like that answer. Not overthink what your younger self should have done, because you're here now, right?
I think I would be thinking that a lot if I were in prison right now, but I feel very lucky for my life. My mom has been doing this thing with my little sister and me where every Friday, and this is going to sound cheesy, and it is cheesy, we send 5 gratitudes, and they don't have to be serious. It'll be it's finally sunny today. And also I'm really glad that my boyfriend likes his job. And also I made such good muffins. And then it really I hate that it's so simple, but it really helps a lot. I
do gratitude lists as well. And right now I'm doing a daily character defect journal entry where I have a sponsor, and it's 30 days that I have to identify a character defect that I had. And then, the defect could be anger, uncontrolled.
Right.
I mean, anger, not that anger is a defect,
very
but just in this moment, okay, I became angry. Then you have to write why. Why did I become angry? Because I was triggered by this situation, blah, 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 blah. And then the third one is an affirmation to kind of calm you down. And then I have to do that for 30 days. And I send her, So
it's reframing. Yeah. And then you end it by being actually, I'm God. No. It's went too far. No, I was thinking about that because I can end with this. I'm not going to keep jammering on, but I've been writing a new bit about cult documentaries and how they just inevitably end with someone thinking they're Jesus, and how sometimes it makes sense because it's we're the fundamentalist sect of this church and the Lord speaks to me and I am, the second coming. But sometimes it's we are selling leggings for the Lord, who is me. What? How did we get here? It always ends with someone being Jesus, and it doesn't matter if it starts as an MLM or what. It's someone thinks they're the second coming.
All right. So we're going to end on a good note. That was a beautiful note to end on.
Yeah. The note we should end on is I am Jesus. You heard it here first.
I'm just going to clip that.
Yeah. I actually came on here to make a big announcement, guys. I've been kind of teasing this. It's me. Jesus.
Okay. So let them know where they could find you if they want to see your debut.
Church. No. Well, if they want to come, I would love to have people come to my show. It's at QED in Astoria, in Queens, in New York, in America, in Earth. I don't know. And it's so not next Friday, but the one after, Friday the 19th at 7:30 p.m. And they can find tickets on my Instagram, which is at Hannah Except Backwards, which I know a lot of people, their first response is, oh, so Hannah. It was not a smart Instagram name. I should have thought it through before I made it, but it's Hannah Except Backwards all together.
I'm gonna I'm gonna post the link to your Instagram in the section below. So anybody listening, if they want to get a quick, click on the link and get there faster, they can do that.
Didn't make it clear, my little.
And that's it. Pranzata Podcast, episode 116. I hope you guys had a good time listening to us. And if you like what you heard today, please don't forget to hit subscribe to help me grow this channel. I'm so close to 1,000 subs, and that's where the magic really starts happening on the YouTube channel. And that's it. Have a good night, guys. Bye.